This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by Gareth A Davies out on the streets of London. Gareth,
Beautiful day, autumn day. Yeah, great to be with you, Andy.
I appreciate obviously you doing this interview. You're in a very rushed state. You've got some busy things to take care of. You're a busy man. So straight into it, obviously Shields-Marshall today, a very fiery press conference. What did you make of it?
Well, I love it. I mean, it feels bigger than 5 weeks ago, frankly. Brilliant press conference today at the Genesis Cinema here in Bow. Really kind of atmospheric, gritty part of London, the East End here, and historically where boxing began in the UK in the East End. It's a big part of the history of the sport. York Hall's just down the road there. We're here in Bethnal Green, and the women did it justice. Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. They clearly don't like each other. Massive rivalry for a decade. They went at it on stage. Claressa pointing out how successful she's been. 12 world titles, 2 Olympic golds, 3 World Championship golds, I think it is as well, in the amateur, something like that. She's an extraordinary athlete, an amazing story. Look into her background. Her book is incredible as well about her life. Growing up in Flint, Michigan, she is a testament to resilience and survival. So she's got this narrative with her that she will not be budged. She calls herself the greatest woman of all time boxer. And yet you've got Savannah Marshall, who's really grown in the last few years. Her confidence has grown under Peter Fury. They feel like they've got the right game plan. For me, this fight, in a nutshell, is Claressa Shields is going to be hit harder than she's ever been hit. And Savannah Marshall's going to be hit more than she's ever been hit. And somewhere between those two facts, we will find a winner with the most will and the most desire. Claressa's told me that her skills will win this fight, and they may well do. But these 10 2-minute rounds for me are going to go very quickly. I think we're going to get controversy, and I think Shields will just pip it. But I got a feeling these women will meet in the ring 2 or 3 times.
Good analogy there from Gareth. It allows me to move on to the next one. Mayer-Baumgardner, again, just as fiery, just as intense. Who edges that one?
They're more catty with each other. And those are the words from Alicia, who I spoke to after. She said, listen, you've got to realise that a lot of women don't go at it when they are building up a fight. And it's unusual for a lot of women to do this, and the men do it more. The testosterone's out and the hairs are up on the back of the neck. But with Mayer and Baumgardner, they've got attitude for each other. They're both extraordinary people again. Mayer has the brilliant amateur background, amateur pedigree. Baumgardner, for me, is the super athlete. She could have chosen the heptathlon, the high jump, the long jump. She could have been a sprinter, please. It could have been a sprinter. There's so much athleticism to her, and of course she's got great power. You look at her physique. Mayer, the taller, rangier athlete, it's her fight to lose in skills, in my view. I think Mayer is the marginal favourite. I think she probably does win it on points. But if she gets drawn into a dogfight with Baumgardner, could be a very, very tough night for her, because Baumgardner hits very, very hard. Mayer isn't Terry Harper, who she put away, and Harper was obviously weight drained when they fought. But again, it's a terrific fight. 4 brilliant female boxers on the top of a very historic card, postponed 5 weeks. Obviously from the day it was postponed was when we were all over at the Riverside Plaza when the Queen passed away, Queen Elizabeth II passed away. Brilliant to be having this event, and amazing that Ben Shalom and Boxer and Sky managed to get the event on all intact 5 weeks later at the same venue. Incredible.
Gareth, moving on from this card and obviously onto some other topics. Most obvious one, it's been about a week now since the news broke of Conor Benn's positive VADA test. I just want to get your kind of thoughts on how everything's progressed since then. We caught up on the day when the fight was postponed, so in the event since, what have you made of it all?
Well, I still agree with the decision. It was the right thing by the board to prohibit it. I've learnt that they met on the Tuesday night and made their decision then and made it public on the Wednesday. Extraordinarily, the fighters carried on, didn't they? And then I spoke to you at the Riverside Plaza on the Thursday. After we'd learnt in the afternoon the event was off. We had a kind of it was a statement press conference from Eddie Hearn and Kalle Sauerland that the fight was off. They even though they said, we're reserving our rights. We followed the process of the board, but we could have put it on with another board. We had more options open to us. since then, we haven't heard anything from Conor Benn other than, I'm a clean athlete, I will clear my name. Tony Sims has said he believes his athlete is clean. Eddie Hearn saying he wants a hearing for his fighter, which is right. The board and Hearn not saying much about their dealings because obviously that's under legal jurisdiction still. But I suspect that UKAD have got the details from VADA. They will look at the case. A defence will be mounted. Will the B sample be looked at? We don't know about that yet. Will they be able to clear Conor Benn's name? It's not become just what happens to Conor Benn and was he guilty or not. It's a big story for the whole of boxing now. The testing procedure in boxing, where is the transparency? Why can a promotion move ahead when one of them has tested positive? Whether they're innocent or not, one of them has tested positive with whichever body it is. You cannot allow, in my view and in many other people's view, carte blanche, a boxer to get into a ring with another boxer who tested positive for a banned substance. The sport is too dangerous. There's too much history of people getting hurt in the ring. It will always be dangerous. So you cannot allow events like this to go ahead when you have jeopardy like this. You can't. For me, if that goes ahead and something happens to one of the boxers, surely that's corporate manslaughter. Because how can you sanction, license a fight to go ahead in boxing when you can legally die in the ring, when one of those two boxers has been shown up to have an illegal banned substance that enhances someone's abilities in the ring, if that's what that drug does? To me, it just makes absolute sense. So boxing needs transparency. We need a paradigm shift where whatever or whoever amongst the bodies that are recognised by sports, if they show up with a positive test, if it's USADA passing it to UKAD, if it's VADA passing it to USADA, if it's VADA passing it to UKAD, if it's any of those bodies, the sanctioning body, the commissions or the Boxing Board of Control need to take action. And you shouldn't just be able to take it to another commission from another country. Just no. I had Mike Mazzulli, who I know very well, the president of the Association of Boxing Commissions in America, ringing me just after we did that interview last week and saying several commissions have got in touch with me and said, if Matchroom go ahead with that event, this was just before we found out, it was after actually we'd found out, but Mazzulli told me that until that moment, commissions in America had said, we're not allowing Matchroom's license in this commission anymore if they go ahead and do that event. It's just not right.
Gareth, what do you think changed the board's mind to postpone the fight? If they knew 2 weeks prior to that fight week what the results of that VADA test were, what changed for them?
From my understanding, they never wanted the fight to go ahead once they knew. That's all I can say. From my understanding, they never wanted the event to go ahead. They never agreed that the event could go ahead at any point.
So basically dating back those 2 weeks when they were putting their foot down to Matchroom, we can't allow this to go ahead.
I don't know the absolute details, but what I know is, from talking to people behind the scenes, they were never going to allow that event under their jurisdiction while one of the boxers had tested positive for something that was a PED or unbanned performance on the WADA testing list, the World Anti-Doping Agency list.
Away from that, it came out again earlier this week, Gareth.
It's exhausting, isn't it? But it is. It is exhausting. It's not. Look, it's part of the sport of boxing. It's part of all sports. People cheat, and so people have to have testing procedures. But it is exhausting. All I've spent the last week doing, not all, is ringing around, ascertaining the facts in the background without being able to. As you can tell, I'm a bit cagey with the details because a lot of people have spoken to me off the record. I've spoken to a lot of people off the record. Everyone involved in it, I've spoken off the record in the background. But they have their own procedures going on legally because this situation needs to be clarified. It could have been clarified a long time ago, in my view. As soon as it happened, they should have tried to have a hearing, done the B sample, have a hearing behind the scenes, try and work out what it was, clear his name if possible, and then move on, if there was time to do so. That's what they should have done.
Gareth, what's your understanding of the news that broke earlier this week that there's an apparent second positive test for Conor that took place earlier this year?
I've read it. I don't know. I have no evidence on it. I've no evidence on it. There are people in boxing that believe they do know about it, but I haven't seen any documented evidence from anyone else, from another UKAD test, from VADA, from WBC Cares, which he was signed up to as well. Their clean testing process. I have not had it from anyone. From my phone calls about a second test, no.
What did you make of the video of Dr. Usman Sajjad suggesting there's ways around testers and kind of staying away from getting caught?
Well, I'm sure there are ways of staying around and taking things and not being caught. Of course there are, because I'm sure some people get away with it. I thought it was to come out and say, I think he said 80 to 90%. It was a historical podcast that a while ago as well. And I don't know whether that was before he had a licence from the board to do tournaments and to do medicals. I think he got his licence from the Central Area Council. Yeah, that's right, the Central Area Council. Just thinking this through now. I think to come out and do that on a podcast when you're a doctor involved with the boxing board is foolhardy. Because he's got no evidence. He's got no evidence that 80 and 90% of people at the elite level are taking banned substances. But, he was saying there are ways around the system. Of course there are. There's ways around every system. People drink and drive, or they take the back routes to go home. Or, people do shortcuts. Human nature. People do things to get an advantage. Of course there are ways around it. Sports science and these things are a very complex grey area. I'm not a specialist in it. You can talk to one doctor who'll tell you one thing, and you can talk to another doctor who'll tell you another thing. So, it's a complex area. I think it's one of the most complex areas of the sport, frankly, along with dehydration, which we've seen as well. Chris Eubank Jr. did not look good at 157 pounds. Thank God that it's not just the newspaper story. Let's get this right. Before the newspaper story broke, they had the board the night before said this event is off. Had they gone ahead and done it with another commission, maybe that wouldn't have stopped. But there was an outcry in the media, in the public, in all of us doing it, that it was wrong. But yeah, it's an absolute mess, and it needs clarifying. We need transparency and we need clarifying on it.
What did you make of Eubank Sr.'s comments this morning on TalkSport, Gareth?
Is that where he said they were trying to murder his son? Well, I don't think they were trying to murder his son, but they weren't doing the right thing, in my opinion. He's talking a very emotional way about his son, Eubank Sr. He's obviously had the tragedy of losing Sebastian last year. And any father, I'm a father and a grandfather, any father that lost a child, you can understand their emotion around things like that. It's tragic. He was a great person as well, So he's just being protective towards his son. That's all it is. And he's been in 2 wars with Nigel Benn. He knows what that kid's DNA is made of. So, he didn't want his son to go ahead and do it. Chris wanted to because fighters do. Fighters don't say no. They don't back down. But the right thing prevailed. Chris Eubank Jr. did not step into a ring with Conor Benn. And thankfully, in retrospect as well, when you look at the shape on him, emaciated at 157 pounds. Thank God he didn't step into that ring.
Final one, Gareth, away from all of that. Fury-Chisora 3, I know you've got a very good relationship with Tyson. Is that the one we should expect to see take place next? Yeah,
I think so. But I think the key around Fury-Chisora 3 now is where they put it on. Is it in a 20,000 seater? Is it Manchester Arena? Is it going to be O2 Arena? Principality Stadium's too big for that. They might get 30,000 there. It's a keep him warm fight for Tyson Fury. Still got to take Chisora carefully. People will write Chisora off. Beat Pulev, although that was debatable, but he beat him. Great fight. And Pulev went 9 rounds, 10 with Anthony Joshua. That was a 10-round fight with Derek, was it?
No, it was 12 with Derek?
Yeah, it was 12 with Derek. It was 10 rounds he went with Joshua. And he looked all right. Pulev's a decent fighter. So, don't write Derek off. Tyson can't treat him lightly. He probably will, but he mustn't. because we want to see Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury an undisputed title fight in the Middle East late February, early March next year. Yeah, it's not satisfactory. I'd love to it to be Andi Ruiz Jr., but he fought in September, didn't he? That would have been the fight for me.
Well, Gareth, we'll leave it there now because I know you've got to shoot off and I have to shoot off as well and get this work up. Thanks for speaking to me in ID Boxing.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure.